Gamarjoba megobrebo mogesalmebit. I'm Mr. Smith, and today we're looking at the story of Tcha da Gigo. This is Tcha, as you probably guessed, a goat, simply that, and Gigo. Gigo is the name of this boy, whose current, I suppose Tsigni is also, let's say, the third character of the story. It's written by Jakob Gogebashvili, and it's quite short, and it's very old school. So we're going to have to modernize it a little bit. But the core message is very interesting. Gigo zarmatsibichia. Gigo is known for being a lazy boy. Mashin grotsa tcha ubralo tcha. While the goat is merely a goat. And I think when Gigo, I'll just tell you the story before we get into it, because I think that might in fact help. When Gigo decides he wants to be known for something different, he wants to be known as a reader, as an intellectual, he picks up a book and goes to the center of the village so that people can see him reading. But of course, it's all fake. So in English, we have a phrase which is pride goeth before a fall, literally a fall, because that's what happens in this story. There's also hubris, goes before a fall, and they have the same message. They're saying that arrogance is not the same as application. And what I like about Tcha da Gigo is Jakob Gogebashvili shows us that we're better than animals. We can evolve. We can be better than animals. We're superior, but we have to put in the hard work. And so this story is told to children to remind them of what not to be and perhaps on how to be. This was so effective that the name Gigo stopped being used. The name Gigo became synonymous with this type of faker and a fake person and a liar. And so it just became very much like we would look at the name Karen, that not many people want to call their kids Karen these days. Gogi is really popular, but Gigo as rare as you can be. So we're going to be taking a look at this line by line. So at the end of today's tutorial, you not only know how to translate the story, but you know exactly what the story means. And then you get to appreciate exactly the Georgian twist by Jakob Gogebashvili on this story and why it makes it so exceptional and definitely worth our time translating. Slide 1, and the word of the month is Rapari, and that is a story, often told to children. Tcha da Gigo is the story, and Jakob Gogebashvili's Michedvit means according to, or sometimes we say in English, written by. Michedvit, and then this ending here. Jakob Gogebashvili, the writer. And these are the first two lines. Icho erti zarmatsi Gigo. Et cheltkva. Modi. Tavs gamovichin. Begitobit. Oh. And we haven't translated it yet, but we will. What he says is, I want to be known for something else than being lazy. And so we have to really deconstruct now to proceed. And I think that this is more a love letter to myself to this story, because I remember struggling. I thought these stories are so hard for us to learn that very often we avoid them. And at the same time, there isn't a story in the Georgian Zarapari that tells us that diligence is the key to true success. So we're going to have to study it because we don't want to be Gigo. Now, let's look at the beginning. Icho erti zarmatsi Gigo. The adjective zarmatsi, lazy, comes from an animal. And so Gigo was known for this, the adjective stuck with him. And even today, in fact, that's why people don't call their kids Gigo anymore. And so, Icho erti zarmatzi Gigo et kva. He once said to himself, Modi, which is how you say, I'm going to do this. No, I animate myself. Tavs gamovichin, myself, I'm going to shine and be known for Begitobit. Oh, Begitobito. He wants to rebrand himself. He said. This O connects with the appearance of quotation marks in English, essentially. This is quite interesting, isn't it? And I think that if we look at what's in the red box, which here we have ra-o, by adding o to the word ra, which just means what, I'm saying, repeat what he said. What did he say? Ra-o. This can be used as well for what did he say, she say, it say. It could be a message on Alexa, something from a speakerphone, something in the airport, whatever. Ra-o. I heard it, but I don't know what he said in this case. And so here, actually put at the end, it confirms to the reader that this is a quotation. Very, very different from English. Ratkva gigom is the same thing, but opened up with a verb, because there's no verb here. That's the fascinating part. And so the contrast, isn't it? The adjective he wants to be known for is begiti. Diligent, hardworking, studious, begiti. But he's known for being zarmatsi, lazy. And so he wants to, begitoba is the noun, it's diligence. And so when we have to answer this important question, what was he famous for? He was famous for being zarmatsi. So rit gamoichi na tavi gigom is our question. Rit gamoichi na tavi gigom. What did he stand out for? And we'll say, si zarmatsit is the answer. And that's the problem. Because he wanted to be known for begitobit. Begitobit. He wanted to be known for being diligent. So in the first two lines, we're confronted with quite complex Georgian. But as you can see, that's what happened. He was known only for being lazy, and he said to himself, I'm going to change that. And by saying this to himself, we've added the O. And that's what Jakob Gogebashvili did to young kids. When they hear the story, they know what Gigo said to himself because of the addition of this O. It's a technique used in telling fairy tales, and it's used concretely in this story. And the final thing, it's where I learned it. So we're going to have to go step by step and develop the story, because how does Gigo rebrand himself? Can he rebrand himself? And why does he want to rebrand himself? Gamochena is essentially that. It's about standing in the spotlight and letting everybody know who you want them to think you are to some extent. You will be known for something different maybe. And so it's the application of changing and rebranding who you're known for being, and in this case, who you want them to know you for being. Slide 2, and how does Gigo plan to rebrand himself? Well, this is how. Gamovida sachridan, aigotz igni, da gavida soplis moedanze. He came out from his house, took a book, aigotz igni, and went to the village square. Gavida soplis moedanze. Chamojda ik kunze daidotz igni muxlebze dashig qureba daitsko. he sat down on a tree stump that was a cut tree in the middle of the village square, the center of the gossip. Probably loads of people have sat there. So, perfect place to fake it. Daidot igni muchlebze, put the book on his lap, actually. Probably his knees, his lap. I don't know, I would rather say lap. Dashi kureba daitsko, and started to look inside. It's a book, right? You're supposed to be reading. Shemom chedet. Rabechiti bichi varo. Shemom chedet. Look at me, people, in his head. Rabejiti bichi var. Oh. Can you see here? Mevar. Rabejiti bichi varo. He said. Again, this O substituting these speech marks. And so, there he is. Where is he? Well, he's in the village square, right? Sopeli is village. Soplis moedanze is where he went. The center of attention. Tigni, of course, you probably know this word by now, and Sachli is his house. But, of course, we do need to look at a few things. Kunzi is a cut stump from a tree. Muchli is a knee. Muchlebi are your knees. So, kunze, he sat on a stump. Muchlebze, he put his book on his lap. And then we've got here in purple, tzkera. Now, tzkera is in the original version, which is the version I posted on my Instagram, which is this version, which isn't used at all in Georgian anymore. Substituting never kureba, much more modern. And shig is not used. Let's say shigit is much more common. This is considered archaic, but I liked it in the story because it's very, it's how I learned it, really. So I know it is old-fashioned, and I know that shigit is within the book, but essentially I do like to learn both, and I believe tzkera essentially is like perusing, taking a cursory glance at the book. So we could also resurrect Old English to achieve the translation, but that's not the point. The point is that he's not really reading, but he's, if you didn't know, you believe he was. So he's starting to rebrand himself. And of course he's in the right place, isn't he? He's in the village square. Side 3, and what's wrong with that? Well, he's lying. He's a fraud. He's not really reading it. The book is upside down. The words are flipped. He's moving his eyes so that he is seen differently from what he really is. That just because you can lie doesn't mean you have to lie. So it's all about people that believe that if you can lie, then lie, rather than be truthful. And this is so relevant to today, actually. Soon, sleep got the better of him. It's boring. And karma, he started to fall asleep. He started nodding his head. And what happens is that there is a goat that belongs to the neighbor that sees him, and he's moving around, being a goat, moving his little billy beard. And he sees, this is now the next slide really, he sees the boy and thinks that the boy is provoking him and inciting him. So the goat is naturally easy to provoke, and the boy seems to be provoking him, sitting in the middle of the square. The idea, quite simply, if he wasn't faking it there, he wouldn't be in this sticky situation with the goat. So, in Georgian, tsikni ukukhma echira. Echira ukukhma tsikni. It's upside down. Arkit khulobda, dashik tkh uilad, ikhureboda. This is lying, really. That is fake reading, skimming, fake skimming. I couldn't find a good translation, but you can see what I mean. He's moving his eyes, no? He's not really reading. Male zili moeria. Male zili moeria da tavis kneva daitsko. Started nodding his head. Andros, relatively the same amount of time. Tcha, pechebis, bakonita, datsveris, his beard, tsansarit. Bakidan, garet gamovida. Bakidan, from the stable, garet, outside, gamovida. Gamovida is in fact more or less how we started the story. That's what the boy did. So here I've just, of course, this reminds us of the material from last week's class. Bakidan is really not used. People generally say sadgomidan when they're referring to animals on a farm, especially goats. Sachlidan, gamovida was Gigo. Sadgomidan, gamovida was tcha. The last slide, and the goat is on its way. And the goat has come to teach Gigo a valuable lesson that humans could never do. So it sees him and thinks it's being invited or challenged to a chidaoba. Chidaoba is wrestling. It's something which Georgians still win gold medals for in the Olympics. Famous wrestlers are very big celebrities here. And hits him with his horns. He goes head over heels and it hurts. And he does that in front of everybody. So whether Gigo learns the lesson or not is not the point. The point, of course, from Gogebashvili's perspective, is that we teach an engaging story for kids to remember that lesson. So here in the middle, I've just got the essential vocabulary that we would have to learn. Raka means horn. Rekebi are horns. And we're going to see that with horns, rekebit, he hits the boy. Chidaoba, of course, we just mentioned, is a wrestling match, wrestling. Qiramala is a word that means upside down. Here in Batumi, there is a restaurant, very famous restaurant, this one. It's called Qiramala because it's upside down. So it flips the boy Qiramala. And then an interesting word here, but tav momtsone means smug, proud, full of yourself. Me momtsons means I like. So it's you like yourself, you're full of yourself, so to speak. And these are the essential words to finish the story. So let's finish the story. The last 3 lines in Georgian end the story and reminds us of all those different past tense verbs, how we put the ending on things to say with in Georgian, and of course a little bit of fun, I suppose, from still very difficult to say, but it's the end of the story. So Gigos tavis kneva rom dainacha tchaz egona chitaobashi mitzvevso. Chitaobashi is into a wrestling match, mitzvevso. He thought, he believed he was being challenged into a wrestling match. Gamoekana, right? Daejacha here. Daejacha. So gamoekana, run. Daejacha, rekebit, with its horns. Qiramala, maybe you don't need. But gada atriala, Gada atriala, agriala, da agriala, chveni, tav momtsone, gigo. These two, of course, are quite similar. Double A, riala, riala. Maybe it's easy for kids to remember what's going on. So he's been flipped over, head over heels, and he screams out, ah! Tav momtsone, smug, gigo. Das hat's really. The end.